G'day, everybody. Welcome to episode 60. This is the last episode for the year. I cannot believe I'm at the end of the year. And you've probably already wrapped up for Christmas because this will probably be coming out on the 27th of December. But perhaps you're still listening to podcasts. I know lots of people shut down earlier than that. I just couldn't resist this year. And so I've kept going. Um, Last week, I produced an episode on reflections on how you might want to think about questions that you might want to ask yourself as a founder at the end of the year. How do you make sure essentially that you get more out of 2023 by having done some of the right kind of reflection at the end of 2022? So hopefully you've listened to that and you'll get some value over that episode over the next few weeks, and that'll set you up. But when I was reflecting on 2022 and I was thinking about what are some of the biggest issues that I've heard about in the market, I'm connected with lots of founders. I go to lots of events. I've got lots of inputs to help me hear common themes. And the biggest challenge and the biggest common theme, say it with me because I know you're thinking it right now, was finding, engaging, and leading the best people. So many of you in our community are in services businesses, and therefore you're not selling widgets. You're selling people's capability, people's knowledge, people's time, all sorts of things. But really, your business relies on people. It doesn't rely just on something technical or a product. And this year we had 5 guests, 4 CEOs, and 1 author and expert, where I really they thought they had important things to say on the topic. And so what I've done with the help of Dave, thank you so much, Dave, for pulling this together. We've stitched them together for you in a special flashback episode. So those CEOs and experts include Narelle Anderson from Envirobank, who had this incredible principle around moving away from this sort of retention, this sort of needy retention focus that we have with our people to a contribution focus. She had some great wisdom to share on that. Anneke Broek from Broek. I'm not sure if I've pronounced that right, Anneke, apologies, from Rufus and Co. She really gave some great hard questions to ask about your team that I think are always really challenging ones to ask, but really important. Matt Forman from ASX listed XPON Technologies talked about psychological safety, hiring principles, and where the balance is between kind of giving people autonomy versus non-negotiables that you might have as a CEO. Bryan Watson, who scaled IDS in South Africa, who had some fantastic things to say about how he attracted high potentials, what they actually need in terms of a leadership environment, and then therefore how to lead them, which I think was super informative. And then finally, we had Liz Wiseman. She's the author of Impact Players. Such a great conversation. And she talked about recruitment techniques and key ingredients around culture and mindset, and particularly how you engage with high impact players, what they need, how to get the most out of them. So that's what we've put together for you this week. It'll be a slightly shorter podcast than normal, but we're going to stitch those little clips together for you so that you've got a bit of a flashback kind of model. First time we've done that episode type. Hope you enjoy it. You won't hear from me on the 3rd or the 10th of Jan, which would be our normal next podcast publication dates, because I'm taking a couple of weeks off. I will be spending time on the beach on the Sunshine Coast with my family where I live. I'll be reflecting. I'll be recharging. You will have me back in your feed from the 17th of January. But finally, before I wrap up, it's worth noting that we had some amazing news from our distribution platform this week, and myself and my team were just tickled pink. Drum roll, we did 42 episodes this year. Okay, that's not really very drum roll worthy. We did 42 episodes this year. I'm not sure what I was doing with the rest of the time. Why didn't we do more than that? I'm not sure. Anyway, that's how many we did. We produced about 100 bite-sized video clips to YouTube. And if you didn't realize that we actually had the full episodes on YouTube, as well as mini clips for every single episode of all the gold that's being shared, go and check it out. We're actually getting quite a few watches on YouTube at the moment. But more importantly, the podcast was listened to in 19 countries. We were in the top 20% of the most followed podcasts globally. What? Can't believe it. And in the most importantly, and this is so important for me, the top 15% most shared podcasts globally. We were in the top 15% of podcasts who got shared globally. And that one just had us over the moon, because it means that you're getting value from all the content that we're putting a lot of effort into producing for you. You're sharing it with others. And that is the whole reason I built this in the first place, because it's about helping founders who've got something great to offer the world fulfill their potential so they maximize the positive impact and the value they can create in the world. And you're helping us do that. So sincere gratitude from me for your support this year. I hope you have an amazing break. that you take lots of ideas out of this special flashback on such an important topic, and it fires you up on how you're going to build and lead your team to the next level next year. All the best. Hope you had a great 2022 and you enjoy your holiday period. See you back in your feed on Tuesday, the 17th of January.
A business, it doesn't matter what the business is, we're not quite in the robot era yet. So every business relies on people. And there is a saying that a business is the sum of the people that work there. And I do strongly believe in that. If you have great people, you have a fantastic business. And so the challenge for any founder is to find those great people. And, whenever I talk about people and talk to my people, we always talk about being on the bus. So running a company is a journey. Owning a company is a journey. We talked about the growth at the beginning of this chat, the growth of Envirobank. Well, that's a journey. You're a company. You're not the same company at 5 million that you are at 25, that you are at 35, that you are. And along the way, you need different skills. So if you think about that as a bus ride, at different times we need certain types of people on the bus to drive us and get us to the next station. And then we need to swap out. So it's really, for us, about being very transparent with the people that come to us, finding out really what they are looking for in terms of their career journey. And we really make a concentrated effort to enable people and give people the skills for their next stop. So, gone are the days where people came into a company and stayed in a company for 10 years, and that was like a badge of honour. We do have a number of people that have been with us for that time. But more often these days, you see people changing roles in the 3 to 5 year mark. So we just need to, we put systems and processes in place to make sure that along the way, while people are adding value to our business, that we're adding value to them and to their potential career path. And for me, I get super excited about that. So more recently, one of my team leaders up in Queensland told me that he was leaving to start his own business. And, I was overjoyed, super sad to see him go because he was a rock star, but super excited that he had learnt some things at Envirobank that were going to enable him to start a business of his own. And we offered him the opportunity while that business was starting up to work with us casually, because cash flow is a bit of a challenge. I think he was a bit surprised, but I'm always super excited to hear what people are doing next. And when you do that, you get people that are more engaged.
I think the other thing is people. At the end of the day, there's 24 hours in each day. And how we need great people to get things done. And I think my entire day yesterday was spent on people problems, actually. Everything from hiring to dealing with problems to dealing with all sorts of, I spent my entire day yesterday dealing with people. And so it can be really tricky, but it's just a necessary part of growth, and getting the right people on the right seats is actually something I do relentlessly all the time. And then making sure that if they're on the right seats, are they still the right people for the next 5 years, and just being, we've got a checklist where we as a leadership team say, would I enthusiastically rehire this person? And the word enthusiastic is because it's like, oh, they're really good because they know a lot about everything. I'm like, yes, but are you enthusiastically rehiring them? And, obviously we're working to always develop and grow our people. And many of them have done things that they've never dreamt of doing themselves, which is so cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the symptoms of it is blame. Because I think if you're in that environment where you don't feel psychologically safe and you can't, say what's on your mind, or you can't make mistakes and learn from them, then you start blaming others, you start blaming everything but yourself, right? So you see that manifest itself very, very quickly. Instead of, was one of our core values is own it. So, you own your outcomes no matter what happens. If you've made a decision, you own it, good or bad. And sometimes for their words, right, and they're nice words, but actually living that day to day, you see people on a different kind of spectrum of how they
Mm.
respond to that. And I
Mhm.
think as they start to feel safe, then they go, okay, it is okay if I own this. I don't have to
Mm.
try and place blame or shift blame or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of the symptoms of it. I think the biggest challenge I've had as the founder and the CEO is getting the balance right between autonomy for my team, my senior
Mm.
executive team. And like I said, we've brought businesses in that have founders, so they're used to being autonomous as well. And that's part of the secret sauce for XPON is, you've got this founder-led mentality. But trying to get that balance right between giving them too much autonomy and then things happen in silos and they're not consistent, and being able to provide enough sort of structure and influence, I guess, to say, well, these are the things that are non-negotiable as far as how we need to do things at XPON right now.
Mm.
Because you don't get economies of scale if you've got different people and different business units doing different things. And that's simple things, right? Using different CRMs, for example, because you buy a business that's using one, we've used a different one. And, I think they're growing pains for any business that has acquisitions as well, is those systems integration, that people integration piece. I had a mentor. He was a general manager of a company where I had a job back in the early 2000s, so very early in my career. And he said to me, when it comes to recruiting, he said, if you need to talk yourself into it, talk yourself out of it. And that stuck with me. And I say that to all of our team when they're hiring as well, is if you're sitting there going, oh, yeah, maybe, and you're trying to convince yourself, not the right fit, talk yourself out of it and move on. Hard in a very tight labour market to be true to that. But you have to, otherwise you're going to bring people into your business that don't fit your culture, might not have the right skill set, and that's going to impact your customers as well. So that, for me, simple advice, but has stuck with me and I use it every day still, 20 years later.
What we could do, though, is we could get really smart, robust, ambitious people who valued the ability to grow and develop in a great team above the immediate benefits of higher salary or the corner office. So we looked really hard for people who are motivated by personal growth, possibly quite early in their career, and we looked for the diamonds in the rough. We looked for people who maybe didn't have that massive corporate career behind them, or they didn't have a massive job lined up, but there was something about them that we liked. And we recruited hard and heavily and spent a lot of time talking to people. And in the end, we ended up with a team of people who responded really well to autonomy. And I guess a step back is, what kind of culture were we trying to create that we sold to these people? It was massive amounts of autonomy. It's a small business with a lot of ambition. We're not going to micromanage you. We're not going to tell you what to do. We're going to create opportunities for you. And we're going to spend all our time creating opportunities and pointing you in the direction of amazing opportunities and things that can be done. And then we want you to go. We're not going to hold you back. We're not going to bog you down with bureaucracy. We're also going to have an incredibly open and transparent, a radically transparent culture where everyone talks about everything and we all learn across the business. So one of the pitches to a sales guy is, you're going to come in, but you're going to learn about the factory. You're going to learn about the product in the back end, because we're not siloed, and everyone speaks to everyone all the time. So we as a senior team, we believed our job was 90% just talking to our teams and our customers. It was constant communication, constantly putting people together, making sure people were learning. And then a huge amount of individual sort of independence. So if you wanted to go and surf in the morning and come in at lunchtime, there was no one going to hassle you about that, as long as you were performing. And so we allowed people to balance their lifestyle with their work. But we asked a lot of them at work in terms of what they delivered, but then we also gave them a huge amount of space to determine how they delivered that and when. And as a result, we attracted self-motivated, driven, ambitious, creative people who valued the opportunity they'd been given and didn't resent the fact that the office wasn't that great or they didn't have the best parking space. And it resulted in very little politics, because those kind of people are all pulling in one direction. They're too busy to be political or complaining or whining or getting involved in criticizing the factory because something wasn't right. So that culture, and then that culture builds on itself. So people start saying, this is a great place to work. And then great people find great people, right? So after a while, our best people came through our people. They tell other great people that it was a great place to work. And so I think we ended up with a team that was vastly more competent than we probably had a right to deserve. Our transparency went very deep into the business. So people a long way removed from the sort of executive C-suite understood the impacts of their actions on the financials of the business and why it mattered, and were therefore able to make good decisions in the absence of a senior person telling them, you can do it within this range or within that range. And so the principle was push decision making as far from the center as you can, as close to the customer and to the factory floor as you can. To do that, you have to spread information as far out from the center as you can. And that requires trust, because people get information that can be used competitively against you. And we had some instances where people abused information. But the net benefit way outweighs the risks. And we had the same approach to buyers and potential strategic partners. We were consistently more transparent than they expected us to be about what was going on inside the business, what we were developing, what our financials looked like even. And that transparency brings with it risks that people could come and compete with you. My argument was always, if knowing one or two financial metrics from our business helps someone come and beat us, then we've got a very tenuous competitive advantage. Our competitive advantage has to be deeper than someone with a look at our EBITDA margin can come and compete with us. That just can't be. If that's what you're relying on, you're in serious trouble as a business.
Yeah.
And the second one was, if you're transparent with people and they can see you being consistently transparent, then when you do tell them something down the track, they trust you because you've been transparent. And I think that played a really big role in our exits. We had 2 consecutive due diligences by international listed businesses, one from Italy, one from Sweden. And they sent teams of lawyers from London and the US, and the feedback we got at the end of those due diligences was, it's exactly what you told us. There's nothing that you didn't tell us up front. And we're a little surprised and concerned that we can't find anything that you haven't told us. And so I think for me, that process of establishing trust over a long period of time by being transparent and consistent is a hugely important driver of value in a buyer's mind when they're buying. It takes away a lot of the risk from them in terms of, is there something here that I'm missing? And we had the same rule with our board. It was absolute transparency on bad news. When there was bad news in the business, they knew within 30 seconds. I was on the phone. This is what's gone wrong. This is what's happened. This is why. This is what we messed up. This is what we're going to do to fix it. And so when your board hear instantly from you that there's a problem, then they stop asking you questions all the time because they know you're going to tell them. They don't have to dig. Same with buyers and same with our staff internally. They didn't have to think, wonder if there was a subtle underlying agenda, because it was just open. This is what we're trying to do. And that transparency has risks, and some people really don't like it, and it doesn't fly in some environments. But for me, it's simplified the matter of building trust massively, and trust is central to achieving anything great. The first is, you'll hear it all the time, you'll never get there without the team. The team are the everything, the most important asset of people. If you truly believe that, then you have to take that all the way to its logical conclusion, which is, I will trust these people with everything. I will align with them on everything, and I will show them everything. And if you find high potential people with lots of ambition, and you show them open green fields and say, go get them, I've got your back no matter what. I've got you, but I want you to be brave. I think you would be astonished what a team of people can achieve. And I was constantly astonished by what our team achieved. From the size of operation we were and the people we were competing against, we just punched way above our weight all the time. And it was down to one thing and one thing alone, and that's the incredible group of people who were doing it. And as a founder, I think, and now as a founder in a smaller business, I'm sitting at the other side where I'm not building a team off of an existing base. I'm building a team off of nothing from the start. I'm just becoming deeply aware again how central it is that the people you get along for the journey are the kind of people you want to be with in 3 or 5 years' time. So yeah, getting the right people on board as early as you can, being prepared to take the risks to give those people responsibility and let go of the reins and let them exceed what you could do is the difference, I think, between an average business and a great business.
Finding people with the right kinds of mindsets. I think you can use a lot of the ideas from behavioral based interviewing to do this. And kind of the little acronym for that is a STAR: situation, a task, an action or result. So behavior-based interviewing is the assumption that people's past behavior is the best predictor of their future behavior. So if you want someone who takes the lead, you ask them about a situation where they had to take a lead amid ambiguity. What was the thing they had to do? How did they do it? And what happened? And so my recommendation is to adapt that technique a little bit. I call it a SOAR, a situation, an outlook, an action, and a result. So, if I want people who are comfortable with ambiguity, with messy problems, like tell me about a time you dealt with a really messy problem where it was just really unclear, like it didn't belong to anyone. And then I don't want to go right to what did they do. Here's the piece. It's the O part of that is I want to know their outlook. I want to know, how did they think about it? Was this messy problem an inconvenience, somebody else's job that they had to come in and save the day? Or was this like, sort of a delicious problem? Like, oh, this is interesting. Like, it's not really my job, but this was like the most important thing to the company. So like, this is like, and so I want to like spend a lot of time understanding how they thought about it, because how they thought about that is how they're going to think about these problems.
Yeah, 100%.
So use this
I
SOAR
like that.
technique and really it's funny, I've used this myself, and everyone wants to move off of like the O part and get right to the A, the action. So it's situation, outlook, action, result. And I'm like, no, tell me a little bit more about how you thought about that. Like, what was the assumption? What were you telling yourself? Like, and it's funny, like people are like, why does that matter? I'm like, oh, that's what we're hiring. We're hiring a mindset, not a skill set. Here, it's not even about finding those people. It's about deserving them in your organization. Because if you like,
That's
I
good.
think, I've studied
Yeah.
these people. I've worked with these people, and they're not going to go work for just anyone. And if you, hire someone who is rangy and flexible and adaptive and like moves towards ambiguity, and then you put them in a box.
And then you tell them to report on everything that they do every 25 minutes of the day. Okay, I want 5 pages on Friday of everything that's happened this week. And they're like, what?
Yeah, you're going to kill that spirit. And it's like, you have to be the
ready.
kind of leader that those people would want to work for. And you have to build a culture where those people will stay. And you have to probably most importantly build a culture where that mindset can spread. Because I think the impact player mentality, it's like sourdough bread, which we here in San Francisco are pretty good at. And it's all about a starter. And if you have the starter for the sourdough and the right environment, like you keep it warm and you kind of feed and nurture that starter, like it spreads like crazy. And I think this way of working is how most of us want to work. But if you create an environment where that's singled out or not supported or diminished, it won't spread on a team. And then you'll get those people who aren't growing, or they're overly taxed. You get jealousy issues. Like, how do you spread the mentality? Number one,
Cool.
define what I call the win. What's important now? Like, let people know what the agenda is, what's important in the organization, so people can flow to it. Like, don't keep that a secret. Keep reminding people, here's what's important. Number two, we talked about it, rotate leadership roles. Treat leadership as temporary, not a position on an org chart. Number three, if you want people to finish strong, define the finish line. Like, here's how we know we've done a great job. Here's how we know we're done with this job, so that they can get all the way there. Give people performance intel, not feedback. Like intel that helps them adapt and adjust. It's like kind of stripped down sterile information. Hey, that's off target. We need more of this, less of that. And lastly, if you want people to be easy to work with, just state what you appreciate. Like, when you do this, man, it makes it easy for me to make a fast decision. And let people like describe that positive behavior and let people move toward it. Like, and then if you want to create a warm environment for impact players, just bring together two things: safety and stretch. I'm summing up like everything I've studied for a decade on leaders who multiply talent is they create a safe environment, but they create a stretch
Safety and
environment.
stretch.
Do those, and that mentality will spread.